Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me for a funny one today. It is time to say bye-bye to the AMG GT Black Series. Now, thanks to my friends at Quantfury, I have been thoroughly enjoying having the Shmee-mobile here in Dubai, currently out somewhere in the desert. Expo 2020, I believe, is over that away, but the very same car I drove across Europe on the Black Series tour, did a bunch of laps with at the Nürburgring, and have now driven over 1,000 kilometers with here in the UAE, including, well, as the stickers from the windscreen show, having had it in the car parks at the Abu Dhabi F1 and plenty more. But this is not the end of the adventure. Today I need to head over to cars, so we've got a short drive. I want to give you an update on what it's been like having the car here, driving the UK right-hand drive car here in the Middle East, and some of the things I hadn't necessarily thought about before. We're going to park it up in storage because in the new year the adventure is going to continue, and I want to tell you more about that today. I know that this is not exactly the prettiest of locations, but I've pulled over somewhere at the side of the road. This car is still looking magnificent. I've said it far too many times, and I'm sorry for that, but it was all, I suppose, part of the plan when this idea was hatched to have this colour out here in the sunshine. And as you can see this afternoon, it's looking wonderful. The car gets very, very dirty out here, I'm not going to lie. You leave it parked outside for a day or two and you come back and it's coated in a thin layer of dust, as it is at the moment. Oh, and something I need to clean up there, but pretty much whatever you do, there's a lot of dust that just falls on the top of it, and I suppose I need to learn to get used to that. But it's one thing I need to consider in terms of the servicing, and a few of you guys have asked me about this, because driving in very dusty air surrounded by sand, you probably want to up the service intervals in terms of getting the oil changed, because obviously it's running at hot temperatures, but also in terms of changing the filters and that kind of thing. So probably I'll have a service done as soon as this trip is over. At this point I've driven about 1,200 kilometers, so that's around 800 miles, which is probably more than I thought I would have done, considering since I came out, I then went to Jeddah for a couple of days to the Saudi F1, and I've been really quite busy, so I've only driven it probably on 7 or 8 different days, but a couple of times over to Abu Dhabi. The mileage has picked up reasonably well. I want to do a lot of miles out here. This is a car where I intend to do a ton of mileage with it. It's on about 6,000 kilometers at the moment, just over, which is around 4,000 miles or so. I think it's 6,200 kilometers at the moment. So it's a car that I thoroughly intend to do loads of miles with, and I've been very much enjoying the Opus upgrades on it out here, because it just feels like being in the warmer temperatures, the exhaust is always more lively. Now, I've touched on this a little bit, but every time you start it up, it just fires up with an anger that I didn't hear from it back at home. And the other big difference is when it comes to the tyres. Now, remember, just before departure, we went to Whoops We'll Fix It to swap over to my second set of wheels. So not the original wheels that came with the car, they are the same stock wheels, but on a new set of the Cup 2Rs, the MO1A stamped tyres fitted to those with the GT Black Series graphics, so a new set of tyres, because if I did a few thousand miles, the old ones would be shot. But the really interesting thing I have with these is that back home, before departing, it was about, what, 2 to 5 degrees Celsius, and at those temperatures, you go out on the roads with these tyres and they are so slippy, understeering everywhere, oversteering as soon as you touch any power, absolutely useless. And even if you go on a long slog, the best you're going to see is about 25 degrees Celsius on the dashboard reading for the tyres, which again is well below the threshold where Cup 2Rs start being useful. Out here, you pull out of the garage, it's 35 degrees or something, the tyres are good to go immediately, and you drive a little bit and they're at 40 or 45 degrees, so you're into the usable band of Cup 2Rs, and suddenly they are a very, very good tyre for having instant grip whatever you do. And you know, with 850 odd horsepower, I'm not going to pretend that you're trying to use that all the time, but it makes a gigantic difference to the usability of those tyres. So I had thought maybe to do a trip like this, I needed to put something a little bit more all season on it, but they have done a very nice job out here. I think I've still got a few leaves that have buried themselves in the front from driving around in the autumnal weather back at home, which is quite funny because there's no easy way to clear out the front. You basically, everything goes in through some openings down here, but with the mesh that you have behind the grille and no entry through the bonnet, there's nothing you can do about it. So those are pretty much permanent inside the thing. Otherwise, it's all in very good shape, as you would hope. It managed to get through the transport completely unscathed, as obviously you would hope, as I've had on each occasion that I've sent my cars long haul. But this, having now been in a 747 up at 30-something thousand feet, and now here in Dubai. Anyway, I want to take it for a little bit of a drive. As I said, we've touched on the servicing, we've touched on the tyres, and a few other things about the car just generally getting very dirty. I've done my best possible job to avoid dust from getting too much on the inside of it, especially with all the Alcantara. But as you can see, 6,148 kilometers. Double press for the power, into noisy mode, up or down shift, paddle pressed, put on the brake, start it up. Sounds so good. Aircon has done a wonderful job as well, although I will just turn that down temporarily because I don't want us to be completely blasted by it. But really, this has been the right car for this. And a few people said, why didn't you send the Senna? Why didn't you send the Ford GT? And I think the main reason for that is actually behind me, having the luggage space. And I've picked up quite a few things while I'm out here. I've had suitcases in the car on occasions, and having a car that is so good if you want it to be dynamic. And I've not yet been to the tracks and the mountain roads. That's all going to come, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But having a car that's so good in those environments, but still so usable, makes a complete game-changing difference after my experiences with the Ford GT, where whenever I wanted to go anywhere with two people in the car, there's nowhere to even put a laptop bag. So I had to get like an Uber to follow me with luggage, which is not feasible long-term. This, I've been able to do it all on myself, all on my own. And that just changes what I can do with the car. So it's been a really good companion so far for a trip like this. But obviously it's only been in the UAE so far. Anyway, engine cold starts has just finished running. Let's head for a short little drive out and go explore, because I want to touch on what's going to be happening next with this before we drop it off at cars. The first and most obviously unusual thing about all of this is having a right-hand drive car out here in Dubai. Now, the particularly odd thing about that is that you can't register a right-hand drive car here in the UAE. You can only bring in a car like this if you are resident in a right-hand drive country and you're here as a visitor and the car is only here temporarily and is going to be exported. It's allowed to be here for up to 6 months. So this is the perfect time of year to have come out in early December with all of the events, with the F1 races, with National Day, with the good weather, because it's not too hot as it will be here in summer. But the strange thing is when you pull up anywhere, like at a valet, because everybody is quite confused. They'll go to the passenger side and your passenger is like other side, and then I've basically just been parking the car myself to avoid the risks of any troubles. It takes a bit of getting used to, as per normal, right? I've driven so much around Germany, France, Italy, you name it, all the European countries, so I am very familiar with driving right-hand drive cars in left-hand drive regions. You just need to watch a little more carefully in your blind spots, because obviously you don't want to get it wrong, but people don't necessarily realize that you can't see them, so you need to think about it that small touch more. But when you are familiar with it, it's no big deal. But this is the thing, right? This just sounds angry and aggressive from the off, whatever you do out here, which is what I've particularly enjoyed. Even at 3,000 or so RPM, it just sounds absolutely fantastic. Now, there are loads of those rumble strips out here on the roads, rumble strips and also speed bumps. The rumble strips in this car shake it quite aggressively. You really feel them, more than I would have necessarily expected, I would think. So we go over a couple more here. They just send a lot of vibrations through the car. The speed bumps, as you might have heard me whinging about a few times, catch this car out really badly, because behind the front wheels, so under the engine, you have a lot of active aero work. Now, that obviously has massive benefits in terms of performance on the racetrack, but it catches on every single bump everywhere. And I was chatting to one guy who owns a car out here, and he was saying that it puts him off daily driving his car just because of the noise. Now, it is slightly bendy plastic, so it's not actually cracking it or breaking it as it would be in so many other cars, but you still have that feeling of scraping the underside of your car, and it's not a good feeling if you've ever had that experience. So I can see why it would put people off. I think I've decided that it's going to happen, so I'm basically just accepting that, and if I have to replace those parts down the line, then I have to replace them. At the end of the day, this is a car that is driving so many miles in so many extreme places with the plans that are ahead, that I really can't let it bother me too much, because otherwise it's just going to be an immense stress. Now, I'm very much enjoying driving around in good weather. Obviously back home right now the weather is very grim, very miserable. Wait for it. It's just funny. It's just funny. Yeah, so being out here and just pulling out in the sunshine and being able to go for a drive so reliably, knowing that the weather is going to be nice, is a total game changer. And some really cool opportunities as well with the videos that I guess you guys might have seen by now. So absolutely brilliant time to be here, to be in this region and to travel around a little bit more. But having been here for a bit is what's brought up the ideas of so many more things to do as well. Like, I would love, obviously, to go and drive Jebel Jais and Jebel Hafeet, two of the most amazing mountain roads that I've experienced here. I would love to go to drive Marina and the Dubai Autodrome. Cars, where we're going now, is actually at the Autodrome, but it's not open for a public track day today. And I would love to just be able to travel more around the region. Imagine taking this car to Oman or Bahrain, to the international circuit there, or even to Saudi Arabia. So I'm thinking at the moment to make the most of it, to spend a bit of time here in January, a bit more time in February, maybe in March, travel further afield. What about in March, taking it over to some of those other countries? You know, there's the Bahrain Formula One race, the Saudi Arabian Formula One race. Those are both at the end of March, so we'll see, because I can picture in my head some mad road trip coming together around that time, around those locations. So good. Yeah, so maybe that's going to be on the cards for further afield. I didn't really plan when the return would be at the time we brought this car out. It was kind of open-ended. With air freight, you actually can't book it more than 2 weeks in advance. So you basically can't book the return if it's going to be a longer trip. You book one-way journeys. And if I'm going one-way journeys, this other totally crazy idea that has gone through my mind is, given I'd quite like to take this car to the USA at some point, Dubai to the US via Europe, or the other way, what about going via Japan or something absolutely insane like that? These are just ideas at the moment, but certainly being considered. And, you know, as I've said before, it's thanks to Quantfury that this car is here. So for me, this is living the dream. It's totally mind-blowing, but such a cool experience to have my car here and to be able to share what this is like with you guys, what this extraordinary possibility is actually like as we head. And it's not very far from here, it has to be said. I've driven just over 1,200 kilometers now, but, you know, I'd like to do thousands more, and the typical service schedule for this car would probably be 20,000 kilometers or every year. I need to check that exactly. I'm going to end up doing it clearly quicker, but if the car is out for long enough, maybe I end up doing a service while it's still here, before it even goes home. That could be something that needs to happen, needs to be on the cards. There's a lot of fairly monotonous driving here, roads like this, where all you actually want to do is just stick it in comfort and put it on cruise control and let the car do its thing. And that's again what I like about this particular car. It doesn't have the adaptive cruise sensor at the front, which I believe on other markets you could spec on other market cars, but on the UK cars, all predefined specs, you couldn't do that. So I've had to, you know, this is really minor, but it doesn't have the adaptive cruise and it doesn't have the blind spot monitoring. These are no big deal. They're just things that if you're doing long journeys and lots of driving are nice to have on a car these days, a car of this price point, obviously. I kind of get it. It's slightly more track focused if you save the weight of the electrical gubbins, but by the time you're stuck in a nice sound system and you've got two people in the car, it's not going to make any significant difference. Anyway, I roll with it. This is the only way to be able to spec the car. I'm a bit concerned from obviously driving in the heat and having hot and sweaty hands that the Alcantara on the steering wheel, or the Dinamica as it is for this car, is going to wear out quicker than it otherwise would. So that might be something, you know, down the line of the Schmiemobiles to need to work on and to have a little change done. They're fairly easy to have these things retrimmed, so I know a few good guys for doing that if it should be required. Sound of this, it fixed the problem. And, you know, when I was with my friend Ranjit out here the other day and heard his car, kind of made you realise that it just from stock was just lacking that little something. Now this is the perfect example of a difficult blind spot, seeing around the A-pillar and the wall over there, the cars that were coming towards me. But on the other hand, we have a little bit of a tunnel, which means first gear, individual. Pop, pop, bang. I'm pretty sure they don't have a stop. I don't really know who has priority. Yeah, they did have a stop. They have a stop line painted there. Oh well, that's what it is. We're out now. It just gets grip and hooks up. Yeah, tiny little slide there, but you got to think as well how dusty the ground is at the moment. I'm fascinated by driving this car. I enjoy it so much. It's me in a car, and you know that makes sense given the miles I did with the AMG GTR and with the GTR Pro and the Roadster and the SLS, and they're all pretty similar. They're all the same, you know, platform at the end of the day. Share a lot in common, so it feels home. It feels like this is how I want my front mid-engine sporty GT to drive. And yeah, just loving it. Just totally loving it. Having this car here is it's from a different continent. I was going to say from a different planet, but that technically wouldn't be true, as we have a speed bump ahead, and this is going to be prime, like, scrapey territory. Take a listen to it, as it inevitably gives us the sound. No, this one looks okay. They have some of these longer bumps. That one's fine. That one's not too bad. Oh, the blow-off valve sound is also brilliant. Don't hear too much of that when you have the windows up, so it's a privilege reserved for the times when the window's down, but mad. Absolutely mad. What a crazy thing. Anyway, not too far to the Autodrome, but just driving this here, aside from having to watch out for traffic, has been so far totally awesome. The last stretch then, my final kilometre with the GT Black Series here in Dubai, heading round to the entrance of the Autodrome. It's a very cool place. The cars have their base out here, to be right on site with the cafe, with the storage, with everything else they've got going on. And a road that I've driven many times. Is that a 911 Turbo coming towards us? Regular Carrera, either way, look nice, bright yellow. And yeah, just a super convenient place to be. There's always stuff going on. There's a wonderful kind of community that's around it as well. As we will head on in with some vicious speed bumps. Get ready to say farewell then to this car in a second, which is quite a crazy feeling, but this is where we are. Coming to the end, heading in. You can see the grandstands of the Autodrome. Nice little final snap from the car as we get ready to drop it off. And here we are, back at Cars, where I collected this car not all that long ago. Yeah, with a GT3 that I think looks familiar. I'm going to park this up and yeah, take it from there. Wow, last bit of driving for the moment, but this is a long way, as I said, from the end. There's a lot more to come with this out here in the Middle East. For now though, 6,167 kilometers. Off we go. Auto handbrake on. Right, some final thoughts. Parked back up then, out the front of the Cars Cafe, and as usual, the vents are running in overdrive because they repositioned the front radiators for the GT Black Series as opposed to the layout. I think they're normally straight up, and in this they're at an angle. It means that to get the cooling over the places it needs, like the turbos for example, and given the nature of the high-speed aero performance that this offers, they actually have to run really aggressively for quite a long time just to be extra safe, because obviously these cars have to be built for markets like this where they're being driven in extreme temperatures. And well, we have the sun starting to set down, so thankfully it's a little bit cooler now, but another beautiful day here at the Autodrome. And in fact, they have just settled down. We have a fair amount of brake dust on the wheels, so it'll probably need a bit of a wash before it does get parked up and packed away. I've taken a few small stone chips to the front, down on the splitter, one on that canard, but that's why it has PPF. Those are all easily rectifiable by just changing the film at some point down the line, so I'll get all of that done when eventually this car does get back home. I don't know when that's going to be, I don't know how long it will be. I took out a carnet de passage with the guys here at Cars, which meant putting a deposit basically, but allowing it to be transferred from country to country around the world on short-term bases. So there are some opportunities to take it far and wide, and I think for the moment at least I'm going to leave those stickers in, which were from the parking at Yas Marina at Yas Island, although longer term that's going to be inconvenient because they do slightly obscure the driver's visibility. Anyway, for now, as I said, it's bye-bye to the GT Black Series. How crazy is this? This is the end of the first, well, I guess it's almost been 3 weeks of having it out here, which boggles my mind how much has happened in that time, how much I've done with the car already, but there are so many more things I would like to do. The track days, the mountain roads, photo shoots, exploring more, other countries. So that's why I've basically taken the decision that when it's here, I might as well make the most of it. I think you guys are enjoying the content as well. For now though, a huge thanks to the guys here at Cars for looking after it on my behalf. A huge, huge, huge thanks to the guys at Quantfury, my friends there who have made this possible. Absolutely insane to be doing this adventure with the Shmeemobile. And of course, as always, to you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the videos. But that's it for this time. I'll see you again back on the road very, very soon. Cheers.